Somebody said, honestly, nothing is more creepy than how deep sea anglerfish mate. The deep sea is dark and the angler, well, I guess I'll read the full thing. The deep sea is dark and the anglerfish are spread very thinly. Therefore, when an anglerfish meets another anglerfish, it is incredibly important they get the chance to mate over and over again. The evolutionary strategy that deep sea anglerfish devise is extra creepy. The male latches onto the female, biting her and never letting go. That way, he can inseminate the eggs she drops. Not that bad so far, right? But wait, how does he eat if he's latched on his mate? Well, this it's a big word for Elmo. The system fuses and the female provides nutrition for the male through his fused basically his mouth is fused to her, to her body. The true horror starts here. The organs of the male start to wither and a trophy being absorbed into the female. Eventually the male is reduced to a lump of testicles the female uses to fertilize their eggs. Females are often covered in bumps of several males that have melted into the female, becoming a literal body horror lump of meat on the female. That's like having your body count labeled on you, but it's lumps of testicles to your body.
The male latches onto the female, biting her and never letting go.
That.
So these are the fish that are like
this. Yeah, the fish. So what John said last time was for Finding Nemo.
Ones.
Yeah, Finding Nemo, the little lanternfish. They latch onto each other and they're committed.
You know what you said. It's like having your body count. I think this was a
Black Mirror thing, social credit.
Yeah, or is it where or maybe I heard it from Andrew Tate or.
It's everywhere.
Fresh and Fit or something.
It is from Andrew Tate, where if everybody had their body count labeled on their forehead, how different the entire world would be.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, we read that, but that.
Well, that's kind of what it is, but I mean, anglerfish don't care about that.
They're not gonna know.
Yeah, but humans and that, it's crazy how we just go from anglerfish to.
Yeah,
but it's a legit thing, how different would the world be if everybody had their body count on their forehead? Yeah.
Do you think that matters?
Yeah, I think that matters. No, but then it gets into...
Okay, but does it matter? Is it is it different for a male versus a female? To me, it's more of a negative thing if a female has a higher body count. But for a man to have that, I feel like it's less frowned upon.
I agree with that statement because I think that's what's I'm going to say tradition, but... I'm not trying to be careful with my wording to offend people. I'm just trying to say the right thing because I agree with you 100%. It is more frowned upon, where if the female does have a higher body count than male, than a male. People more care oh my gosh, she's been with 20 men, or dude, you've been with 20,
exactly
20 women.
Well, and this is my take really quick. I think it is like that because. For females, they don't really have to work.
They just give it up. That sounds so messed up.
Well,
but
they give it up to the person that they want to give it up
because
to.
It's said that women are the ones. So women are the ones who get to decide if you guys have sex or not. Mm-hmm. Then it's also said, well, men also decide if you guys are getting married or not.
Right.
So, but I know what you're going with that, but I know it sounds really bad that they just give it up, but they choose to have sex with whoever.
Exactly. So, yeah, with that being said, it's easier for girls to go out there and be like, I want this person or I want this person or I want this person versus where us, it's harder because it just is. We can't really...
I am taken.
Okay, so a girl can be like, "Oh, I want to sleep with him."
Yeah.
And the guy's most likely gonna be like, "Oh, you want to do that? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay."
But if it's us and I'm like, "I want to sleep with you," then we're kind of exactly.
Blah, blah, blah,
so we almost have to work for it. If that's all you want, right? You work. You gotta do what you gotta do, and got the Riz and got the. No, I'm just kidding. Which I don't have apparently.
You do. You just be working out, bro, at the gym, and I'm just like.
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But yeah. Where were we going with that?
The aspect of a woman with a lower body count versus a man, or a woman with a higher body count versus a man with a higher body count as well.
Yeah.
So, those two.
Well, and then I think it plays with age too.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, if you're, for example, let's say you're 20 years old and you have 15 body count, what happened to you? You're 60 years old, you have 20. Oh, I mean, that's a little bit extreme. Oh, you have 20. It's like, I don't know. Like that part, I mean, I stunned my own self right there because it's still.
You're like, wait, hold on.
Because am I talking about male or female right there? No. Like, is a 30-year-old with a 20 body count, does it matter if it's male or female? Like, is a 30-year-old female with a 20 body count or a 30-year-old male with a 20 body count? Do you look at that person differently? Reduce that age down to 20 years old. How about that?
Yep.
Do you look at that person differently?
For sure.
What do you think about the woman?
I don't know. I feel like for me, if I'm going to be with a person, it doesn't like I'm not going to ask, but I feel like when you're starting a relationship with somebody,
that's a key
it's
topic.
usually the female asking. And like to me, I'm like, I'm not going to go out and ask like, "Hey, what's your body count?" You know? And I don't, it's like I want to say that I don't care, but if you're like, and if we've been talking for a couple months and she's like, "Oh, I have 3," and say we're both 26, 27 years old, however old we are. And she's like, "Oh, I have 3 or 4." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's reasonable. That's like, that makes sense, right?" Versus, "Oh, yeah, I've been with like 20." Then I'll be like, then I'll like second guess. And I'm like, what? That's a lot.
And I would be the same boat as you, That way it's like,
And will it stop me from being with that person?
Would you marry that person? Not just being, but would you marry that person? Because
it would definitely put a second it would make me second guess it. And I guess it would have to. I would second guess it. I can't say yes or no because I've never been in that type of situation. But I would definitely second guess it.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
But whereas a guy is like having a higher body count versus, like, I almost feel like the girl wants the guy to have a higher body count.
Really?
Yeah, because they want like the experience, a more experienced person.
But wouldn't that also depend? And we're not speaking for everybody, of course.
No. Yeah, we're not speaking. But I have heard from some people that are like, "Oh, I don't really care as long as you're doing a good job. You're clean, right? You're clean and you're like
you're good in bed."
Exactly. Like you know what you're doing.
Wouldn't that be more of a hoe mindset versus a girl whose priority isn't that?
But I feel like
a good girl versus a hoe. And if anybody's here being offended at the word hoe, it sounds like a you problem. We're not picking on anybody. We're not calling out anybody particularly. But
20 plus years, no.
But if you're being triggered by this conversation, then you don't get upset at us. You need to reevaluate your own self respectfully, with all respect. But continue.
Okay, what was your question again? Sorry. You said. Well, okay. Let me backtrack. So, I feel like girls will say that because a girl wants to be with a guy that she knows picked her, because she knows that there's other girls that he can get. But in her head, she's like, okay, I know that he can get all these other girls, but I'm choosing him and he's choosing me. So to them, it's like almost like an ego thing, right? That's
like he chose me out of all his options.
Exactly.
But does that
and it goes along the lines of like, oh, he's been with this many people, he can get girls, and he's choosing me, and I like what he does in bed, right? But when we think about it, from a male perspective, I can't. This is just me thinking like how the female brain works, and I'm not like a freaking pro. I'm not a female, right?
Sure.
So I'm a male. So let me speak on. That was my opinion. Okay, don't freaking roast me.
You have a mob of girls.
Right. That was my opinion. That's what I just think. But
our opinions do not matter.
Well, and then we're both male. No, just kidding. Sorry. So, just from my perspective on how we see it. So, when a girl has a higher body count, that's what I think. I'm like, okay, well, she's, I don't want to say ran through, but
if we're being honest,
right,
it's been ran through,
right. And then that's gonna make you second guess, and you're like, okay, well, why do I want to be with a girl that's been with this many people?
Because then it brings a question. Well, was it really a challenge for me to get to this girl?
Right.
If 19 other guys have been with her. What am I? 20th. Cool. I mean, after that point, another 25 are probably going to come through. So what difference do I make? So
exactly.
And that guy may think, well, I'm just going to check in and check out real quick.
Yeah. And then with us being our age, it's like the females that were like from 20 to 24-ish have had their fun, right? And we're like 25, 26, and if we're out looking for a partner, it's like, okay, well, I don't really want a girl that had their fun, right? But then there you get the other perspective of like, well, you want to have that girl that had her fun already, because how do you know that they're not going to want to do that in their time later on?
But that also brings them morals.
Everybody's not the same. It's exactly. Everybody's so that's where morals come in. And to me, I'm like, okay, I want to be with the person that has, maybe like one or two serious relationships or whatever. And of course, things are going to happen. And if that relationship doesn't work out, then they move on to the next. And then, if they end up with me and whatever happens, I'm like, okay, that conversation comes up. Oh, I've been with 3 people, 4 people. And I'm like, okay, you were dating these people, so I get it. Or like, whatever it is. And then I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And that to me, I'm like, okay, you have morals.
Yeah.
Versus I'm talking to a girl and she's like, yeah, like I'm 26. I've slept with like 20 people and I'm like done with that though. Like I'm ready to settle down.
But nobody's going to want to settle down with that.
Well, I mean, you can't say everybody, but
yeah. But maybe somebody else who has matching numbers. Good. Oh, you matched mine 26. I'm not sure 26.
Right. Or, but it doesn't have to be people like that. There's people that are like, 2 bodies, 3 bodies that are wanting to be with.
I'll be vulnerable, like to any woman who is, listening to this podcast. You don't have to worry about, am I ever going to find the right guy who, doesn't just sleep around like crazy or 30 body counts or whatever. There's plenty of guys out there who are still virgins. I'm not saying that I'm a virgin or anything like that, but it
goes both ways.
Yeah, it goes both ways, and that's just to reassure. Like, you could find that person you're looking for in this generation. Just don't make that your focus.